Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Max Sinclair is joining me on the podcast today. He's going to be talking about a number of things. I know that a lot of stuff's appeared on LinkedIn and everywhere else in terms of what went on at Accelerate. We're breaking down some other bits and pieces that have not necessarily been covered over the last week or so. Max, welcome to the show.
It's great to be back. It's been about a year and a half. So,
Yes.
Great to see you.
You too. All right, let's get straight into it. Let's talk about one of the biggest things that come out of Accelerate, which was the titles and product descriptions and how Amazon are planning to adapt those to the customer's needs.
Yeah, I mean, this was the biggest surprise in my opinion, which is Amazon, as you say, are going to start personalizing the experience of customers. So customers will come in and each customer will see different product descriptions on the same product. So sellers' titles and descriptions are going to be changed. And with Amazon, I mean, this is really kind of breaking down the wall. Who knows how far this is going to go over the next few years in terms of personalizing images and personalizing whatever else. But certainly in the near term, we can start to expect this personalization to come about. So for example, if a customer search gluten-free cereal, the AI will kind of reposition if you have that in your title, they will reposition that from maybe the back of the title to the front of the title to match the keyword that the customer has put in. So yeah, I guess we don't know a huge amount about it because it was announced a week ago, but certainly going to be extremely disruptive in the world of SEO on Amazon.
Yeah, it's going to be messy because obviously it takes a lot of the work or the intent, in terms of optimization out of the brand's hand or the optimizer's hands. So yeah, it is going to be interesting, and especially with all the complaints about updating listings automatically and then rewriting titles. And most people say, like, when they rewrite the listing, granted, because of what we're used to, the way that, longer titles, longer bullet points, et cetera, when it's rewritten by the AI, it looks like, well, you've just extracted all my keywords, this is shit, et cetera. But I think with them doing that, there's some lessons in there for us to learn, because what they're creating that we think is shit obviously works for the algorithm. Yeah. Or they wouldn't do it.
So I think there's two different teams, and being an Accelerate, it was very obvious to me that these are two very separate teams who are not communicating, let's say, particularly well with each other, to the point where I went to the after they announced this personalization piece, I went straight. They have a little area where they announce product launches, and they also announce stuff about updating product listings, which we'll come to talk about. And I went to the engineer who was sitting there for the product listing AI updates, and I said to him, I have some questions about personalization. My first question was, can a seller opt out of this? Like, is this something you're going to do? Can they opt out? And he honestly didn't even know that this had been announced. And then he was like, what do you mean? And he got confused. He thought I was talking about the other thing, which we'll talk about, which is the updates to, the AI updates, which we've already seen to bullet points, which is actually done by the catalog team, CDQ they're called. And when I explained to him what had just been announced, maybe 10 minutes before live on stage, he was like, okay, he pointed me to somebody else. That person then pointed me to somebody else. And I went on this kind of goose chase around Accelerate. I eventually found the person who made the announcement, and I was in like a breakout room with them. And yeah, I mean, they didn't reveal very much. They kind of said for now, everything is going to be reordering. So they're not going to be generating new content. They're just going to be reordering the existing content that a seller already has in their titles and descriptions. So to me, at least in this kind of V1, maybe until next year, there's definitely still room to optimize for this, because you want to have the best titles, which enable you to then have the best titles that are going to be personalized. And I think what everyone is going to soon be talking about, as we briefly discussed pre-recording, everyone's kind of talking about Cosmo now. I think what's going to be the biggest factor here is something called MCM, which is a 2023 Amazon Science paper on Multitask Pre-trained Customer Model. And just to quote what they do, Here, just to read briefly, they say kind of in the brief, personalization plays a critical role in helping customers discover products and contents they prefer. Personalized recommendations differ in contents, target customer, blah, blah, blah. In this paper, we introduced MCM Multitask Pre-trained Customer Model, a large pre-trained multitask model of 10 trillion trainable parabytes, blah, 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 blah. So they, you know, as often with all of this stuff, they've kind of released this last year. Wasn't clear, I think, until last week how this is going to fit in. Still, if I'm honest, isn't, you know, it's been a week, right? So we haven't been able to do testing or really kind of analyze this internally with my team. You know, we're still looking at it, but definitely, I think MCM is going to be the new buzzword that we're going to hear kind of floating around soon.
And dynamic titles.
Yeah,
that'll be a new buzzword as well. So yeah, let's just quickly go through. So dynamic titles, so rearranging the title more so than replacing the title wholesale, right? To fit in.
That's what they said at Accelerate. Okay. But again, I think throughout this, you know, throughout the last 2 years since I left Amazon, Amazon has had such a bigger appetite to kind of wade into this piece of changing titles and descriptions. When I worked there, we would not update refinements for 3P sellers because the policy was if Amazon gets something wrong, then Amazon becomes liable for that change, right? And these are like attributes that sellers can't even directly influence. It's, you know, sellers can upload the attributes. What comes up on the refinement is a slightly different piece. And we would backfill like material and color and all this kind of stuff to ASINs. Happily do it on the retail side. Wouldn't be able to touch it on the 3P side because of this issue. And to think they've gone, maybe this is 3-4 years ago, from not wanting to touch refinements to happily just changing the titles, uploading the titles and personalizing titles, like the speed at which this is all moving is incredible. So who knows where we're going to be in a year's time, right?
Yeah. All right. Amazon suggested edits. Let's go through this.
So this is a separate one, as I mentioned. Amazon announced a personalization. A separate team called CDQ, Catalog Data Quality, are in charge of the edits. And these were the bullet points that kind of we mentioned briefly, where sellers have broadly not thought they really helped them. And actually, talking to the engineers behind these tools, you can understand why. Because these, you know, this CDQ team, when I spoke to this engineer for about 20 minutes. And he told me that they were gold as a team on completeness, accuracy, and normalization. So for example, if you are a seller and you're listing a chair and you're selling, yours is in centimeters and everything else in the category is in inches, they're going to suggest you move to centimeters for normalization. Their goal is around conciseness of the content. It's about accuracy, as they call it, but basically normalizing it, condensing the content so that a customer can easily kind of read through more listings. So these, you know, from that conversation, it's pretty clear. These are not. You could argue maybe personalization is going to help your conversion. Let's see what happens when it launches. But for sure, the kind of suggested listings from Amazon are not gold to help conversion. Their goal to normalize and standardize the catalog.
Yeah. What else was launched in?
So I guess apart from kind of the big stuff on the catalog, which is where, you know, me and you are really excited, there's some exciting stuff around agents. So I think last week or 2 weeks ago now, I can't remember, OpenAI made maybe the most significant jump since ChatGPT with the launch of O1.
Because it thinks.
O1, sorry?
Because it thinks.
Because it thinks, exactly. Yeah. So O1 is no, you know, GPT will just generate, as you say, it doesn't think. It basically predicts what it thinks you want to see from the prompt and will generate the answer, including hallucinations. O1, as you say, has the ability to think before it acts, use chain of thought reasoning, and kind of determine the best action forward. So this is a massive, massive step forward in AI. One that I honestly didn't think would come this year. I thought this would be some way off. In terms of like comparisons in the International Maths Olympiad, O1 can solve 83% of problems, GPT-4 only 13%. O1 is now kind of human PhD level in physics, biology, chemistry. So we're really moving into this world of agents a lot quicker than anybody expected. And Amazon kind of announced a bunch of these.
Yeah. So should we go through the remainder of these? Project Amelia?
Yeah, so I think the world in 2, 3, 4 years' time is going to be a world full of AI agents, probably more AI agents than human. I think we're all going to have personal agents where it's managing our calendar and our diary, probably shopping on Amazon for a certain extent. We're going to have augmented roles and personas. So like our lawyers, our accountants will have an agent that we will plug in and use, and it's PhD in maths and whatever. Like if you just trust it to crunch your end of year financials better and cheaper and quicker than a human.
Yeah.
And Amazon, in that kind of frame of mind, launched 3 agents. Yeah. I think what I'd say now is, given that OpenAI only got to O1 2 weeks ago, and Amazon made these announcements last week, when we're recording in September, I don't think these are going to be agentic yet. I think these are going to be kind of the standard ChatGPT style that we're more used to.
Yeah.
But they launched Amelia, they launched Seisu, and then they kind of made more upgrades to Rufus, and you talk about Rufus a lot on this show, I know.
Yeah.
In terms of Amelia, it's going to be a personal AI assistant. You can kind of talk to it as a seller. You can ask it to give you business metrics, snapshots, ask for advice, escalate things on your behalf to seller support. Again, I doubt when they start rolling this out, which I think is now for US sellers, I think it's still going to be like a ChatGPT 4 quality machine. So it's probably not going to, we're probably going to see all these snapshots of Amelia telling people to do ridiculous things like eat stones or, ship into Timbuktu to get to US quicker, or whatever, whatever it's going to do, right? But I think given that OpenAI have got to this agentic level now, it's a matter of time before these things become really powerful and really useful.
And they get faster and faster.
Exactly. Like the speed of development is just increasing exponentially.
It's insane.
It's insane, right? That we've got, it took 10 years to get to GPT to just spit out words. And then it took 2 years to get to an agent which can think and then take actions by itself. Like that's an enormous step. Like, honestly, I wasn't expecting it to come so soon.
Yeah.
We have an AI seller support. I you could almost hear the scoffs and the kind of the sharp intake of breath in the audience as they're kind of announcing this. But I like.
Do you know why though? Could you imagine? And I don't say this disrespectfully. It's all trained on Seller Central staff. Can you see the irony?
Yeah,
that's where the gust was. Like, is this trained on Seller Central staff? Because it is. We're in for a painful ride.
I think. Well, I agree. I think we're in for a painful ride in the first year or 2 years. But I think for the survivors of this, honestly, imagine, who would you rather answer your query? Someone who's joined Amazon 2 weeks ago. They're sitting in Hyderabad or Costa Rica. They have never been to Seattle. They have no idea what. Let's say the Cosmo team, the A9 team, roll out some update in their algorithm. Even the scientists within that team, AI is a black box. They're not going to understand, on a seller level, why X ASIN has been moved from A to B category. They've just rolled out something across across millions of ASINs. Good luck for a new joiner to Amazon who kind of has no experience in the tech industry and used to be working in, I don't know, some completely unrelated field, now trying to answer that question. Not going to happen. Going to be super frustrating, especially as Amazon becomes more complicated. But I maybe I'm an AI optimist, but I believe give it 2 years, and you have this PhD level scientist who can actually understand these algorithms. You say, hey, my ASIN got delisted, what happened? Yeah. And it can go and, in theory, go and kind of evaluate what's happened in the changes in A9 and Cosmo or whatever. Yeah. And it can then flag to humans. So it can flag to a VP, hey, I've had 100 sellers all reach out. Like, a human may not spot this pattern but actually, like, as the AI, it spots a pattern that there's this change. 90%, 99% of it went well. 0.1% of sellers were impacted badly. These bad impacts, the pattern just wasn't possible for a human to spot, but it spotted it and goes, right, we need to roll that back or change it. So I think I agree with you. Painful ride for maybe a year or two, but like long term, I think these agents can be really, really powerful.
Cool. All right. And to wrap on, to finish up on, let's talk about Rufus and optimize for Rufus. I know it's covered loads of times. Let's see if you've got any new. Have you got anything new we could talk about?
Have I got anything new? I mean, I think what was new is that Amazon announced that they've had tens of millions of questions into Rufus, which I mean isn't a huge amount, really. If you think about maybe that, the population of 200 million or 150 million using Amazon US. I don't know the exact data, but like it's not a huge amount of adoption yet. But they launched it on the US desktop. So I think although like 80% of searches start on mobile now, you still get a significant amount of like end purchases coming from desktop, maybe 40%. I don't know. So you're getting Rufus on desktop as of last week. They're expanding its capabilities from kind of search to being like this AI shopping assistant. So you're going to talk about past orders. You're going to, talk about like non-Amazon shopping, like cooking recipes and stuff. Again, it's very funny because I have one of my friends runs Advite, and it's kind of like AI social monitoring, and he's been on like, being featured in Kevin King and the rest of it. Anyway, I look at the Twitter for Cosmo and Rufus, and I like, not only do I look at like all the gurus, but I actually look at the customers, because the customers come in Rufus, and at the moment, let's say like 50% of it's actually quite negative. People saying like, how do I get rid of Rufus is like the tweet. But I think like as we get this agentic AI coming, I think this is going to become second nature for customers. I think, betting against this stuff becoming incredibly good at understanding personalization for like your needs, and like just managing your entire Amazon account as a customer for a single like chat interface, rather than like clicking around to like unsubscribe from Prime or like whatever. I just firmly believe this is the future, right? I guess in terms of optimization, as you say, we've covered it a lot. Like we've spoken a lot about context.
Before you move into that, I just wanted to say to you, it's a small data set, but we've got the main image monthly shows where we have product opinion, boys on, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And I've asked them, I said, can you do one on Rufus and usage, and do people know what it is? It'll only be 100, 200 people. But it'd be interesting to see the feedback, because like you said, if they've said, how many million did Amazon announce that use Rufus?
10 million have used it, right?
Right, 10 million out of how many shoppers?
There's 300 million roughly in the US. I'd guess 150 million are Amazon shoppers, roughly. I don't know.
Yeah. So it's still, the adoption's not there. What we have to be careful of is...
And that's the question, right? So you'd probably have in that 1.5% or whatever it is, you'd have some people who are using it an extreme amount, and they're like loving Rufus, and they would be like, maybe of those 10 million questions, 9 million are coming from
a group,
100,000 customers who are like loving this stuff, who are like me and like love it, right? And then you have like most people have tried it once or not tried it at all. So like we don't know about the adoption yet, but
it'd be interesting. I'm not going to say it's not going to adopt. I'd like to see how it does evolve, because we've had voice search, which I'm sure will start to pick up a bit more as well. But really, it's the behavior, isn't it? It's like, how do you get to the customer to change the behavior to go to the search field? They might see it down there in the corner. They may use it. They might see it as a novelty. But if they know what they want, then they might find that can slow them down in some way because they've got the adoption of using that to adjust their behavior. Because at the end of the day, pretty much all search is a form of behavior. It's the tool that implements the behavior. Do you type in and search, right? Or do you use the other mechanisms that's available? And not everything gets adopted. Think Betamax, VHS. Think all these different things that you think are going to explode, right?
Well,
and they don't always. But I'm not saying it won't, but there is a chance.
But my favorite stat in this, just to put the counterpoint, is how many years do you think it took for the internet to get 1 million users?
I don't know.
20 years.
20 years.
20 years. How many days or weeks do you think it took for ChatGPT to get 1 million users?
2 days, 48 hours, 24 hours.
Yeah, well, you made it sound worse than it is. But it's 5 days to 20 years. I think the speed of the adoption here is crazy, and I think the concern that people will have is, and I know this better than anyone. Well, I don't want to say better than anyone. I feel this pain as much as anyone. Having been fine tuning and training and building patents in this AI, with this LLMs and diffusion models for 2 years. Like, this stuff is like a wild animal. It's hard to control. It's unpredictable. Like, you have to put in a lot of guardrails to ensure that it doesn't hallucinate, and that it, like, it's a hard. These things are kind of, we're in the early days of this, but as we
how many engineers have you got on your team?
There's 8 of us now, so we've got 7 engineers, and I'm the only commercial person in the company still, but we are hiring, if anyone's interested, a second commercial person. So we have my co-founders a PhD and a postdoc in AI, and then we have 2 AI engineers. The rest of their full stack. Yeah,
wow, incredible. And how's everything going at the moment? Because you're still in a startup phase, really, aren't you? You're still getting going up.
We just closed a round of funding, so we are in the startup phase. We're growing quickly, and we're just happy to kind of close the seed round and focus on growth and continuing to delight and surprise customers.
Yeah, well, look, I hope to see you rise. I love what you do, and you're a decent guy, and I want people to win. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes you've got to stick your neck out on certain things. You've done it with this, and I've been in startups. I've had startups. I've failed with startups. Do you know what I mean? And I know how tough it can be, but at the end of the day, you've got to take the shots. What are there? Do you see what I mean? And you'll get criticism, you'll get pushback, and everything else, but grit, determination, and a smart team will take you a long way.
I hope so.
So what's the best way that people can reach you?
I am Max Sinclair on LinkedIn. I'm Max Sinclair 4 on Twitter. I'm max@ecomten.ai on email. So I assume maybe you'll probably find one of those in the description or link below
when we drop it out. Yeah, cool. Thank you guys for joining us today. I'll be back here next week. Take care of yourself and your family. Much love, and I'll see you again soon.